Alrighty, if you'll go to the book of Acts, chapter 17, we've been kind of using this as a springboard for us to go into this topic of making an impact. And we're going to continue our look at this passage and center in a little bit more on verse number 2. And I want you to notice the phrasing that is used, the words that are used in this passage here as we look into this. Feel free to move up if you like. I know some of the audio from the fellowship room might leak in a bit into the auditorium, so if you have any difficulty, feel free to move up if that makes it easier for you. But Acts chapter 17. And again, I want to highlight this passage in verse 2. Begin reading verse 1 again. It says, "Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where was a synagogue of the Jews. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them." I want you to notice that phrase there of Paul when it says, "as his manner was." That as the Apostle Paul and those that ministered with him as they went from place to place, he had a habit, he had a manner in which he went about seeking to spread the gospel in these cities. It was a matter of being sensitive to the Spirit of God leading him, guiding him, both in people that he approached, perhaps, more specifically in the words that he spoke with people that he talked to about the gospel. But in all of this, in following the Spirit, he himself and his company that was with him, Silas, Timothy, Luke, others that likely would have been along on that journey, they had a manner in which they sought to reach a city with the gospel. And in his day, that was to go to a place where God was already being spoken about, a place where it was common practice that when a guest came into a Jewish synagogue, that they would have opportunity to greet their fellow brothers and sisters as a Jewish people and to give a word. To speak something from the Word of God. That was a common practice. It was an easy way to first introduce Jesus as the Messiah and for him to be able to share the gospel. And so his practice, his habit was to go in and first begin in the synagogues. And many of the cities that you read about that he goes into, you will read a similar account that he goes into a synagogue of the Jews and begins to reason with them, it says. 3 Sabbath days, that means 3 weeks. On each Saturday, the Sabbath day of the Jews, he'd be going in and he'd be reasoning with them, not just with his understanding and his words, but from the scriptures. And he would take those scriptures, and verse 3 says that he would be opening them and he would be alleging, meaning that he would be compelling them to believe on Christ for salvation based on what he was showing them from the scriptures. That he was not just shooting off the hip or off the cuff, but he was showing them from the scriptures that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, whom you have crucified and hanged upon a tree, but yet it was God's foreordained plan that Christ would do so for the salvation of his people Israel and for all nations of the world. And so we want to focus on developing ourselves in this area of having a habit of how are we going to reach our city. We do have a synagogue that I'm aware of here in Windsor. But today would not be appropriate or conducive for a Gentile specifically to enter into a synagogue and try to preach the gospel. It would not be well received in the day that we live in. And so we're not likely going to approach our city and starting in a synagogue first within the context of the day and age that we live in. But certainly there are some ways that we can endeavor to go and win the lost. And as a child of God, we all have that desire. Oftentimes the difficulty there is not that we don't desire to share the gospel, but it's beginning to share the gospel. It's how does that happen? Where does that happen? How do I enter into a conversation with someone and be able to share with them Christ? I believe many of us
Whether you're more of an outward person or more of an inward person, I think most Christians would say that if I could just be in a setting where someone wants to hear the gospel, I'd be so glad to share with them. Where there's someone who is just coming to me and asking, how can I be saved? And they're wanting to give their time, they want to give a listening ear for me to take the time that it takes me to sit down and share the gospel, that we would say, I would want to do that. And there are people who are willing to do that. We've got to go out and we've got to find them. We've got to strive to start conversations and let people know that, hey, I know Christ. I know the way of salvation. Would you allow me the opportunity to share that? And so I want to share a bit of philosophy, perhaps, as we enter into this warmer season of striving to go out and visit people in their homes, and some other ways that I'd like to give you opportunity to be a part of that, and how we can begin a practice in a manner of reaching other people. We can all say, I am going to go out and I'm going to seek to find someone to share the gospel with, but until we go and do that, it's not going to amount to anything. Good intentions are just simply not good enough. How often have we been in a situation where we intended to do something for good, but it never happened because we just never got to it? It just didn't get on the schedule. It wasn't placed as a top priority for our day, and so it didn't happen. Henry Ford once said that you can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. You can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. You can't just keep talking about we're going to do this or that. You have to actually be a person who does do that, that does practice it. And many times, myself included, we can be guilty as Christians about talking about how we ought to be Christians involved in the Great Commission and going out and sharing Jesus. But when am I doing that? When is the last time that you and I shared the gospel with someone? We know we ought to, and we talk about wanting to, but when does it happen? Good intentions just aren't good enough. Have you ever been in this situation where it's always easy the night before to get up early the next morning? It's always easy the night before to plan to get up early in the morning, but early in the morning comes and the alarm goes off and you slap that snooze button, and just a couple minutes. I'm going to give myself, I'm going to ease into waking up. And soon you find out that easing to wake up meant sleeping another hour or two. Many of us have good intentions, and specifically in this area of trying to get up, and yet we often don't follow through. There are some people who have developed an app to help you get up in the morning, to help you follow through with your good intentions. There's an app called Spin Me, which means you set your alarm clock for a specific time you want to get up early in the morning, and when the alarm goes off, you have to pick up your device and you have to spin around multiple times before it will turn off. You can't just hit the alarm button and snooze it or knock off the alarm. You've actually got to physically spin around a number of times before it will turn off. There's another app called Up, which the night before you set your alarm, and the app is also linked to perhaps your Facebook page or maybe your Twitter account. And when the alarm goes off, if you don't follow through and get out of bed, it will actually post on your Facebook page or on your Twitter account that you have just hit your snooze button and you have not gotten up. And so all your friends and all those who are following you can know that you failed to get up that morning, trying to put some peer pressure on you to get out of bed. There's another app called Alarmy Pro, which is noted to be the most annoying app in trying to get you up and out of bed. And what this app does is that you snap a picture of something in your house the night before, so that when your alarm goes off in the morning, you've got to pick up your phone and run to whatever place in the house that you took that previous picture, and you have to take that same picture again before it will turn off. You've got to go back to that same location. One more, there's the barcode alarm clock, and you can choose multiple items in your house that would have a barcode. You can scan that with your phone, and you could do one item or multiple items spread throughout your house, and you have got to go out and scan each of those barcodes with your phone before your alarm clock will turn off on your phone. All these things so that you can make your good intentions become a good reality in the morning. And we all have those things that we struggle with. We are prone to procrastination. We're prone to desire to do good things, but following through can be difficult. And a habit needs to be formed. A habit needs to be developed. And it's been often said that in order for you to develop a good habit, to do away with a bad habit and develop a good habit, you need to take at least 30, 40 days of continually repeating that before it becomes a habit in your life. And so the same can be said of our lives as believers, that if I'm going to have a good habit of going out and sharing the gospel with others, I need to be doing it frequently. I need to be doing it on a consistent basis so that my mind and my heart is engaged in what I intend to do. And again, this was the practice of the Apostle Paul, to go into these cities and in this manner share the gospel. Last week we looked at striving to make an impact by having a process, and I recommended to us as a church that to us arriving at a goal and in setting up a process, that process begins of reaching people with the gospel with prayer and encouragement, that let that be a basis for which we begin. That when we are thinking about, I want to be a witness to others, let's begin by praying. Let's pray for those that need the gospel. Let's pray for one another, that we would be a bold witness for the sake of Jesus Christ, that we would be obedient children of God to fulfill that command of Christ to go and win the lost. Let's begin with prayer. Make it a matter of prayer. If you will commit to pray about what you have good intentions about doing and winning the lost, the Lord can give you motivation and strength and a spirit that is not of fear but of power and love, if we will begin simply by praying and praying for those who need to be saved. It also begins with encouragement, and in this aspect of encouraging one another to be an impact. Two are better than one. And when you have a team effort to accomplish a goal, not only can you accomplish more, but you also will accomplish it more frequently. You will, if you have a partner that is teamed up with you to go and visit people in their homes and share the gospel, you are more likely to go, because when you're down, they're picking you up. When they're down, you're picking them up. When they're wanting to go, they're contacting you and encouraging you to go, and let's go out and try to find some people to invite to church or to share the gospel with. And so an accountability partner, someone that can encourage you to keep on that habit of seeking to share the gospel with others. And so I encourage you to take that step to begin praying. And we have a sign-up sheet there on the welcome desk for you to be able to be involved. And I want to share a little bit of what it means when you sign up on that sign-up sheet. What does that mean? We are seeking to make a gospel impact through gospel outreach this summer. And we're planning beginning Monday on May 8th, and that Monday forward to be able to go out regularly, weekly, as much as we are able to do, to meet together on a Monday at 6:30 and to team up with a partner who is also signed up to go and go out on those times. That's when we're going to plan for it. We're not going to talk about reaching someone only for the gospel. We're going to plan on it, and we're going to go do that. And so Monday night is kind of a launch point. I understand, and you understand, that schedules are different today than what they used to be. Work schedules are no longer a 9-to-5 sort of work week. It is for some, but for many people, work does not happen between those hours. Many people work before and after those hours these days. Many people work on a weekend. Schedules are different today, and I understand that, and we live in a busy world, and so we don't always get out or are able to get out perhaps on a Monday evening. But Monday evening is a launch point. It's a start time, that this is when we're going to be organized to get together and do this. So that if you sign up and you are unable to come, then it would be the responsibility of you and your partner that you've teamed up with to find another time later in the week to go out, another evening or maybe a morning slot that you're going to plan to go out with your partner and seek to be a witness, or to maybe meet together with a partner and to pray together. That is between you and your partner then to make that happen. We're going to plan also to meet at a specific meeting point, and that's going to be the Tim Hortons on Jefferson Boulevard. You can find the address for that in the bulletin. It's just towards the end of Jefferson by EC Row there. And the reason for meeting specifically there is because the neighborhood across Jefferson Boulevard there is our next neighborhood for us to be visiting people this summer. And so we're going to plan to meet there at that Tim Hortons, and it'll be a brief opportunity at 6:30 for people to share perhaps a testimony of someone that they were able to speak to about the gospel, so we can encourage one another. It'll be an opportunity for people to give some prayer requests, so that if you spoke to someone and there was an interest there, that we can pray for them. If there's someone that you plan to follow up with and to revisit again, that we can be praying for that person specifically. And there'll be some prayer requests that are given for us to pray briefly about and then go out. We'll have the map system that we used last year. You'll receive a map with a street on it that's highlighted, and it'll be you and your partner that are responsible to look after either putting a door hanger on all those doors or knocking and visiting with those who are there at that door. And then we're also going to plan one combined monthly outreach. Some Mondays are a holiday Monday, and so we're not going to plan to go out on a holiday Monday. We want to be careful that we're not deliberately trying to interrupt people in a way that would offend them, so that when we come back, and we do plan to come back, we don't plan to knock on a door and then we're done, we're never coming back. Many people today, if you will labor and you will continue to be a consistent presence, God works on their hearts, and at a season in life when they were not open to the gospel, God can bring circumstances that they become open. The loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, a hard trial or difficulty where they are low and they're seeking God, and we come back to their door at a later time, and we had a good testimony and a good conduct when we first visited them at their door, and they know who Crossway Baptist Church is because we've been there before, they will be much more receptive to us being there again. So we want to be wise in how we approach a door so that we leave the door, as we often say, open, that you can go back and talk to that person. So we wouldn't plan to go out on a holiday Monday, but in a way to help that, we would plan, in addition to the Mondays that we do go out, we would also plan to do a monthly outreach. And so in going out and passing out some flowers with an invitation to the Mother's Day service in May here, that would be an instance of us trying to everyone get together. We're not dividing up and going to different streets. We're getting together, and we're just passing out a flower with an invitation for moms to come out with their families for Mother's Day. And you can be involved in that to whatever degree that you're willing to be involved in, whether it's just passing out a flower and inviting, or perhaps passing out a flower and seeking to start a gospel conversation to lead into that. You're welcome to be a part of that. And so I want to mention two ways then that the sign-up sheet is designed there. One is to be a prayer partner. And so, again, I understand because of health needs and things like this, that not everyone is physically able to go and walk up 40 different stairs to a door for about half hour to an hour and be able to do that. I understand that not everybody is capable of going out in the hot summer heat and to visit an entire street. Understand that. And so the prayer partner sign up is intended to be that you would come to the meeting place at Tim Hortons and you would stay there after the groups are dismissed to pray for the streets that we would be visiting that night, to pray for names of those that have been talked to in prior weeks, and other special prayer requests around the needs of the gospel for our city. And so you would be able to stay there, pray together, and then to be able to have some fellowship, and even perhaps an opportunity to give a gospel tract to someone sitting there in Tim Hortons. Again, we want to be wise about that. We don't want to get into a situation where we become unwelcome at a Tim Hortons because of how we're approaching people. We want to keep that door open so that we can be there all summer long. And Tim Hortons loves to have us there because we're bringing them business and because the people that are there enjoy us to be there. If someone's going to be offended over me talking about Jesus, that's not a problem. I never have a problem about giving the gospel and someone is offended that I would say Jesus is the only way to heaven. If they're offended over Christ, then they are offended not at me, they're offended at God. But if they are offended at my conduct, about my unwise approach to them, that's on me. That is my fault. I have hardened someone or perhaps distanced someone from hearing the gospel because of my manner. So we want to have not just a good manner, but we want to have, we don't want to have just a manner, but a good manner in how we approach people. So that's the purpose of being a prayer partner. The Dowdies are also looking to set up perhaps the three doors of things that God cannot do. And so if you were to be a prayer partner, you could come out and be a part of that and then go to a park location within the neighborhood that we're in and be able to be with him and just talk to people that might come through the park there and have an interest. You could be a part of it in that way as well. And so prayer partners for this endeavor is an option for you to sign up for, as well as then being a soul winning partner. Those who are able to go out and to be able to visit people door to door, to sign up for that and to partner up. And let me explain the idea in partnering up is that if you put your name on a sign-up sheet there and you see somebody else that has signed up, that you can go and ask them, hey, can I be your partner? That you are free to find a partner to sign up with you and for you two to plan to go out this summer. If you sign up and you don't have a partner, that's okay. I will work with you to help you find someone that you can go with so that everyone can be with someone in going out together. I also want to mention, I know that we have some families that come from Leamington area, and it's not as again conducive to come all the way out here. And so if there's interest to be a part of something like this in Leamington, if you let me know, and we can create a map system for Leamington there as well and get things set up in that regard. Thank you for bearing with me on that. I just wanted to explain some of the details on that so you have a better understanding of what that sign-up is. I want to talk then just a little bit here with the few minutes that we have left to talk about continuing our process of reaching people, which begins with prayer and encouragement, and it proceeds with inviting and sharing. So again, we can have good intentions by praying and by encouraging one another, but the good intentions aren't good enough until we actually invite someone. Hey, will you come to Crossway Baptist Church for a special Mother's Day service? Hey, would you come to Crossway Baptist Church this Sunday? I'd like to invite you. And also I'd like to ask you a question. Do you believe that there is an afterlife? Do you believe that there is life after death? And start to try and have a conversation, whether you're just simply inviting or sharing. I want to talk about that for a few minutes. Firstly, on this this topic of inviting others to be an impact. And again, the importance that we see in the passage here is that we have a manner, a habit, a practice when we're planning to do that. And so I really want to encourage you to come out Monday evenings. And if there's some Monday evenings that you're not able to, have a partner that would keep you accountable and you would plan to go out at a later time in the week to make that happen. Develop a manner. And then develop in this area of reasoning. Being able to have the gospel, a gospel plan to be able to lead people to salvation. That's something that all of us want to grow in and develop and be sensitive to God's leading as we do those things. Reasoning of the scriptures. Perhaps that's something that's scary for you. Perhaps that's something that you'd be you would not have a lot of confidence in doing because you've not had a lot of prior experience doing that. I encourage you that the best place to start in that area is just going out and inviting people. If you would get into a habit of going out and giving out a gospel tract, whether it's on a Monday night going door to door, whether it's just leaving a door hanger there, not even knocking, but just leaving a door hanger and just canvassing an entire street, it's a start. It's a starting point. And in you being faithful in doing that, you will be able to begin growing in that to where you begin having more and more conversations. You become more comfortable speaking with people at their door front, and begin to be able to grow into taking those bold opportunities to try and guide a conversation about the gospel. You have to start somewhere. And so I encourage you to start there. Just be inviting people as much as you can. Get into that practice in your life. In talking about the importance of door knocking, it's an important aspect, not just because it's something that churches ought to do. There is the Kingdom Hall that has this practice. There are other denominations that have a practice of going door to door. Why is that? Why is it that various churches or organizations go out about this? Why is it even that when we have our elections here in Windsor, Essex, that they even go out door to door and visit people? There's been lots of research that has been done on the importance of door knocking. And from a secular perspective, last year we had our various candidates that ran for the different wards and areas within our municipality here and city, and they went door to door. And that wasn't a time when we were just coming out of COVID and being at someone's door wasn't all that accepted just yet, but they were going door to door. And that's for a secular purpose. That has nothing to do with the commission of Christ. That was to go out and to win the people's vote. There's been research that's been done. There's been candidates that have shared about the importance of doing this. One such man that ran, John Elliott, made the comment that to get to as many doors as you can and talk to people is the most important thing about their campaign. The more people they can talk to, the better chance they have of being elected. It says if people don't see you, you're out of sight and you're out of mind. You have to get in front of people. You want a person's vote, you need to show your face at their doorstep. And many candidates will say that the success to them winning was them hitting key areas of their ward or their region and talking to people face to face in order to get people to come out and vote for me. There's Lydia Myjan. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but she is a researcher in the University of Windsor here in our city who researches this aspect of those who candidate and are looking for re-election or election and the statistics on that. And she has said that even with social media and the electronic age that we're living in, a lot of candidates can reach a lot of people through social media. But it still matters on the ground. Knocking on doors, meeting individuals at their homes. People remember you if you take the time to knock on their door and talk to them. And again, this is all from a secular perspective. This is for the purpose of getting elected to be able to run for your region. And that even though we can do lots of Facebook advertisements, though we can do lots of things on Google, we can try and get the word out across the internet. But yet it still matters to a great degree what we're doing physically in meeting people face to face. Makes a big difference. And how much more so than in the gospel, in accomplishing the Great Commission, that we ought to be striving to invite people to hear the gospel. And so I want to encourage you to be a part of that this year at whatever stage you're willing to be a part of, to begin a practice, a manner of going out inviting people to hear gospel preaching. And then lastly, share your salvation testimony. Your testimony has great power because it's about what Jesus did in your life to change you. And to strive to find an opportunity to open the door. And many times that opportunity comes through questions. Statements on issues that people about Christ and about the gospel or about the Bible and God that people might be hesitant towards. When you make statements, when you first begin a conversation with someone, oftentimes it causes them to become hardened, causes them to withdraw a little bit. It's great that you have a strong belief, and we ought to have strong conviction, but when we confront people in this way many times, it causes them to pull back and withdraw. But many times when we open with questions, that opens the heart. That gives the opportunity for people to listen and think, well, what does it mean to pass from this life and go into eternity? Is there a God? And if there is, how can I know him? How can I find help? Questions many times will soften a person's response. Jesus often used questions. You study the Gospels. He oftentimes asked questions of his disciples and of those that heard him. Do men take a candlestick and hide it under a bushel? Does that make sense? When he explained the gospel to the Jews, the Jewish people of his day, he explained that Jesus, that he himself was the resurrection, and that those that were in him have life, and those that were not in him do not have life. Believest thou this? He asked the question of them. And many of the parables and the accounts and encounters that Christ had with people, he would ask them questions. And so I want to give you just a few. You may want to write some of these down. You may want to modify these to where they're more natural for you to ask. But I want to give you some impacting questions that you can use as you seek to open the Word of God and to reason with people out of the Scriptures. That these are oftentimes good questions to ask to lead into a conversation. That oftentimes when I go to a door, I will hand out a person an invitation to our church, and I'll say, "Hi, my name is Jason from Crossway Baptist Church. I'd like to invite you to come to be my guest this Sunday." And many times, if you hold that gospel tract out there, they will relieve the awkwardness of you holding something out and no one's taking it. They will take it from you, and they will look at that, and it gives them something to redirect their attention to as you speak to them. And I'll often continue the conversation that we have services at 11 and 1 o'clock, and I'd like to invite you to come out with us. And many times I'll lead in with a question. Hey, do you have a church that you go to at all? I want to learn if this person has any kind of faith system at all. It gives me an idea of where to go to next. It gives them an opportunity to speak there at the door. And as I gain a better understanding of whether they're a religious person, whether they are a Christian, I can know how to open the conversation up to the gospel then. And so questions you might want to ask in trying to start a conversation with people might be something like, is there something I can pray about for you? That I'd like to invite you out to church this Sunday and for you to come. And by the way, I love to be able to pray for people that I meet. Is there anything that I could pray for you about? It gives a person to, again, open up about what's going on in their life, and for you to maybe even take a moment there at their doorstep and say, hey, can I pray for you before I go? And take that opportunity. It may be a wonderful opportunity for them to ask some questions of you and for you to continue a conversation on. And so a way for you to lead into talking about the things of God. You also might say, is there something missing in your life? You may pose a question of trying to lead into the gospel, just saying, hey, can I ask you a question? Do you ever feel like there's something missing in your life? Let them give you some feedback about a question like that. You might say, do you believe that there is an afterlife? Do you believe that there is life after death? Or something along the lines of what happens after we die. You'll notice that these questions don't say anything about God. They don't say anything about the Bible. They are questions that are very general for a person who may not attend church, who maybe have never read the Bible, who maybe aren't really sure what they believe about God. It's an open-ended question for them to give feedback. And it's not a yes or no question. It's not intended to be a yes or no question. We want to ask it in a way that they have to give an explanation in order to answer. And some people may not be comfortable to answer the question, and they will redirect the conversation, and that's perhaps a cue that I need to leave a good impression and plan to come back here and carry on. But it may do just the opposite. It may give you great opportunity. Just like it says there in our passage in Acts 17, it says in verse number 4 there that after he had reasoned with them out of the Scriptures, that some of them believed. And believe it or not, there will be some that will believe at the doorstep. You may have to visit many different people in many different homes, but I have led people to the Lord at the doorstep. I have led people to the Lord out in public. There are some that will believe, and we need to have a practice of continually seeking to talk to people about the gospel. Some of them believed, and it says they even consorted, meaning they joined themselves and began to learn from Paul and Silas. And of the devout Greeks, there was a great multitude of the chief women, not a few, but the Jews which believed not. There are many that oftentimes will not believe, and to the point that they will even seek to hinder you being a witness for Jesus Christ. But nonetheless, there are some that believed and some which believed not. And so by asking the question, it gives an opportunity for us to begin a conversation. Some other questions that you might ask, again, this one of, do you go to church? And this is such a good one to learn a person's background. If they're from a Catholic background, if they're from perhaps one of the Eastern faiths, gives you an opportunity to know where the person's coming from and for you to know how to respond to them, what direction to go as you grow in being a witness. Do you believe in God? Many times we can be too quick to spout out what our belief of God is. Give people an opportunity, if they are willing, if you can guide the conversation that way, to see what they believe. Do you know for sure if you're on your way to heaven? How sure are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how sure would you be that you are on your way to heaven? This is often a question I will almost always ask, is may I take a few minutes to show you from the Bible on how you can know that you can have eternal life? And if a person is willing to say, yeah, I would like you to show me, you have a clear opportunity to take your time and go through the gospel. You don't need to rush through it. You don't need to feel like this person is, they're half interested and I should really just walk away. If they give you an opportunity to share, if they initiate and grant you the opportunity, what an opportunity to take then and to lead into the gospel. I have a booklet that I want to give you after the service here, and like to be able to put into your hands. We used it last year in preparing to go out, and it gives you very simply the plan of salvation from the Romans Road. Romans Road is a great place to begin using to share the gospel with others. And as you grow in your ability to use Scripture, you can modify that. There are so many verses in the Bible that you can use in presenting the gospel, but it gives you a good starting place from what we call oftentimes the Romans Road of leading someone to Christ. And then it also gives you it gives you an example of going to a door and how you might want to try and guide the conversation. Some answers to very common questions that people ask about God in the Bible. And so some good helps that are in there. I encourage you to take one of those on your way out. Make those available at the back welcome desk there on your way out today. And so are you prepared to share your testimony? Are you ready to share the gospel? So I really want to encourage you to consider that and to strive to make an impact with us in our community, in our city, in our county here, that as we have missionaries coming and challenging us about the call of God on their lives to go and share the gospel to others, so we would be a church that does not just send and pray for people that are going with the gospel, but that we ourselves would be found doing the same thing here where God has placed us here in Windsor, Essex, Ontario, Canada.